All right, recording. Now let me go ahead and share this review. That is not it. Oh yeah, it is. You're looking at the right thing, right? You got a review Word document that you're looking at? All right, good. All right, so this will be on Blackboard. Again, old habits die hard, Canvas. As soon as we're done, I'll get it moved over there. So I've basically just put down various things within the different chapters that that could be covered. These are the things that I think are most important out of these chapters. So chapter 1, just kind of the basics. What is statistics, right? And being understanding how we're taking large amounts of data and trying to put them together into things that are useful and make sense, that we can make decisions off of. And it doesn't matter if we're in business. It doesn't matter if we're in something in biology. Maybe we're looking for a cure for COVID. I don't know, right? So we're looking, part of that is statistics, and looking at various bits of data to help us make decisions. So being able to understand a little bit of what stats is and what it isn't, and how useful it can be at times, depending on what we're trying to do. So different types of statistics that we've talked about over chapter 1, descriptive, right? And simply describing data, versus the inferential side of things, where we're trying to make inferences or make decisions, or we're looking at making a broader decisions over what we're talking about. So those things are important distinctions. Again, much of what we see related to COVID today, right, or what we would call descriptive statistics, right? Number of cases, number of positive tests, number of negative tests, number of deaths, et cetera, et cetera. All of those things are mainly descriptive, as opposed to, maybe we've got some political poll that's been taken, and so we're taking a sample of people and their opinions, and then we're making inferences to the entire population, and making our best guess of who's going to win the election, for example, or something like that. And then we look at types of variables. Oh, no, I skipped a couple there, right? So I did talk about population and sample. When we talk, I want to make a distinction with population. When we talk about that one, it's not necessarily that you have to be looking at the entire population of the United States or the state of Colorado or Western students or whatever, right? It could be, we could look at the students in ECON 216 classes, both sections, the 8 o'clock and the 9 o'clock class, and that could be that is the population of statistics students at Western, right? So that is a population. Now it's a sample of all the Western students, but it's also a population. Just depends on how you're looking at the data, depends on what we're interested in, all right? So that's an important distinction, I think, that way. Types of variables, right? Qualitative and quantitative. Quantitative are really around, and actually I've got this backwards in the document, I realized. The discrete and continuous should be under quantitative. I'll fix that before I put that up on Canvas. Qualitative variables are more along the lines of names or other information, not numbers, right, that aren't countable that way. Where we could take an average, for example, of various things. So it's looking for maybe we're looking at magazines and the types of articles or the types of advertisements that are in there. Those are more qualitative bits of information versus the quantitative side, which are numerical. Yes, we can count qualitative things, the number of occurrences or something like that, but it's more around the words of things as opposed to the numbers of things. So quantitative being discrete or continuous. We could look at discrete variables or discrete information like the number of children in a family, for example. You know, we laugh and say that the average number of children per family is 2.2, but no individual family has 2.2 kids, right? So, you know, those are more averages. So those are discrete type things versus continuous, you know, maybe income or something like that that can be, you know, to the penny and can move and change, and those kind of things they just kind of keep on going. There are no distinct lines of 1 kid, 2 kids, 0, 15, right? Whatever. And then we can look at levels of measurement, right? Nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. I'm not going to read all of those to you, but an example of each, right, is so as we look at nominal things, M&Ms, right, the number of blues or browns or yellows, right, whatever colors you might look at. Ordinal is where we've got rankings of things. So, you know, things are put in order, ordinal, right? So team rankings, for example. Intervals, where we've got, you know, the distances have meanings. So things like dress size or something like that. And then finally, ratio, we might look at height, where it's based on a scale and it's a known unit of measurement, inches, for example, or centimeters. So we would look at those type of things in those levels of measurement. So before I move on, what questions over chapter 1 do you have? I'll remind you to mute yourself if you're not trying to ask something. Looks like maybe that's been taken care of, or I'll take care of that one. Okay. Okay. Chapter 2. And let me back up. As I mentioned around chapter 1, there's certainly a lot of bullets in there, lots of information, but I'm not going to spend a ton of time on those. I think it's important to understand these differences, whether you're tested on it or not. I think these things are important to know, you know, how they're different from each other, different types of data, different types of statistics, different variables we might look at, levels of measurement, right? All of those things I think are important. Again, we won't spend a ton of time on that on the exam, but it is worth knowing one way or the other. So, chapter 2, really this is just understanding types of visual representation of data, how to interpret those types of graphs and tables and charts, and just to be able to look at and use them. I'm not going to have you create too many of those in Excel this time. You know, the frequency tables or the bar charts or the pie charts, I would more likely give you a pie chart or a bar chart or a histogram or something like that and say, what does it mean? What are you seeing? What do you observe? Right, it would be those types of things. So that's really it on chapter 2, right? We'll be relatively, there'll be a couple of those on the exam, right, where you've got a graph or a chart that I'm showing to you, and you're having to interpret that and provide some information based on the table. Okay. Questions on that one? I know that was relatively short. So, all right, chapter 3 then. We start getting into the heart of some of basic statistics with mean, median, and mode, being able to calculate a weighted mean, understanding what range is, variance in both population and sample, same thing with standard deviation. This is where, if I stop at that point, this is where you'll see a lot of the things that you'll be asked to do within Excel, right, is to calculate a mean, a median, a mode, to calculate a weighted mean and a range and a standard deviation. We won't do much with variance in there, but we will do the rest of those pretty heavily. I would want you to know Chebyshev's theorem and what that means, and then the empirical rule, right? So Chebyshev's theorem and the empirical rule are all around standard deviation, right? And so, what percentage of observations fall within 1, 2, or 3 standard deviations of the mean? And so that's what the empirical. Let me ask a question. What's the main stipulation with the empirical rule? What shape do the data have to have? Uh-oh.
Bell-shaped.
Bell-shaped, right? Right. They have to be symmetrical, right? So a nice shape. Median and the mean are pretty much in the same spot, and the data is equally distributed on both sides of the mean, right? So that's the thing about the empirical rule. Chebyshev's theorem tries to get at the same kind of information, but the data aren't necessarily pretty, right? They're not in that bell-shaped curve. They're not symmetrical. They could be skewed, right, one way or the other. Any questions on what we've got there in chapter 3?
For chapter 3, are we gonna, in Excel, do you want us to like write it out the long way like we did in that one assignment, or are we allowed to use the functions in Excel?
You'll be able to use the functions in Excel unless I specifically ask you to do it, quote unquote, right, the old-fashioned way, right, or something like that. Otherwise, yeah, get yourself familiar with equals mean, equals median, or equals average. Right. So, yep. So, yeah, you're absolutely welcome to use those unless I specifically ask you not to.
Okay,
Good question.
thank you.
Thanks, Baylin. What else on that one? Part of what will be in the kind of multiple choice true false kind of the section is maybe a little bit of looking at a small amount of data telling me what the average or the mean is, but then kind of the so what, right? The application of stuff, not just, hey, I can calculate an average. I know what mode is. I can calculate a weighted mean. Right. So it'll be more than that, right? On some of the written or the other part, the non-Excel part of the exam. Okay. And then finally, chapter 4. Being able to look at and understand a little bit more, what's the word I want? Integrated graphical visualizations of data, right? So a dot plot, a box plot, right? A box plot's got, it's got the average or the mean. It's got the first and third quartiles. It's got those outliers on it, right? So being able to look at one of those and see what's going on, and being able to calculate quartiles, deciles, percentiles. You're welcome to use the formulas within Excel to calculate those, unless I'm asking you to use the formula that's in the book that's relatively simple, but you can use that to calculate a number in a group of data, and then you have to count over, okay, so the fifth one is the first quartile number, right? So being able to do that and understand that's in the PowerPoint, it's in the book. And then understanding skewness, whether data is symmetrical or bell-shaped kind of a situation where you've got positive or negative skewness to data, being able to calculate things using Pearson's coefficient, and then also being able to look at scatter diagrams to get a general idea of correlation between two variables, right? Questions about chapter 4 then? What you might expect. Okay, so the exam itself, we'll have in the ballpark of 20 to 25 kind of multiple choice, true, false type questions. You'll get graphs in there. You'll get other things to interpret and look at. And then you'll have an Excel sheet to work on that has approximately, right now I've got 4 sheets in it. I think I'll probably leave it at that. So 4 problems to work on based on some data. So, you know, one sheet might have a group of data, and you're asked to calculate mean, median, mode, standard deviation, you know, that kind of thing off of that one set of data. Another one will certainly have some information and ask you to calculate Pearson's coefficient. Yeah, so things like that. That's what you can expect. So this is on Friday. It will open at 8 o'clock in the morning, close at 5 o'clock at night. The multiple choice true false part of this will have to be done all at the same time, right? So once you start it and get into it, you can't get out of Canvas and then come back in, right? So you'll have to finish that part. The Excel part of it, you could download the file at 8 o'clock in the morning, work on it over the course of the day, and then just turn it in before 5 o'clock. Right, so there's no time limit on that one per se, other than that time that it's due. All right, what questions? Cool. All right, stay safe out there, stay warm. I got my sweatshirt on. I've seen a couple of blankets, right? So, yep, exactly. Good stuff. All right, if you have questions between now and Friday, let me know as you're studying for the exam, looking things over. The last thing I'll mention is, obviously this is all open book, you know, clearly I can't stop you. And I also expect that you're working on this on your own. Again, it's hard for me to police that, but please work on your own, have some integrity, those kind of things to do these things on your own and show what you can do as an individual, not as a group or a couple or whatever. So, all right. Thanks again. See y'all. Have a good Wednesday. I don't know what day it is. At least I showed up in class, right? All right. Take care. See you guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.